Hey, it's me again, Antonio, Kustom Keebs, and I'm going to continue this journey of sharing what I know about the custom keyboard. And if you're like me and have begun to have some interest or perhaps want to learn more about this unique hobby, make sure you follow me and watch to the end of the video, and you'll most likely understand why this is such an interesting hobby to many custom keyboard enthusiasts. If you haven't watched my last video, make sure you watch it first because this is going to be a continuation of the basic stuff that I mentioned in the last video. Just in case, I will leave the link of the video right there and you could watch it first. So when it comes to this keyboard hobby, you got to be influenced by those keyboard YouTubers. The obvious reason is that not many people are aware of it. And Teja, as far as I'm aware, is the community that started the trend. I could be wrong, but he is the reason I became interested in his early years of building keyboards online, soldering switches onto the PCBs and looping the switches. A list of YouTubers who specialize in custom keyboards including Alex Sotos from Toronto, Clackpate, Switch and Click, Bad Seat Tech, AntiV, Nguyen, Keyboard, and others is something I highly recommend. The number of keyboard YouTubers has increased significantly since I first became interested in the hobby in 2017. With so many resources available online, now it is a great time to get started. Wait a minute, you might ask, what the heck are PCBs and looping switches? Let's start with the PCB, which stands for Printed Circuit Board. This is a type of board that connects electronic components in a device. In a keyboard, the PCB connects all different parts such as the keys, the LED lights, and controlling chip, the computer or devices it's connected to. It's an important part of any electronic device, including a keyboard, because it allows all the components to communicate and work together. In short, a PCB is like the brain and nervous system of a keyboard. If you saw my previous video, I mentioned that there are two types of PCBs, solderable and hot swap. Once the PCB is soldered, it remains that way indefinitely unless you try to unsolder it and solder new switches on it. The other type would be the hot swap PCB, where you could switch the key switches by using the switch puller, and it is way more convenient to change on the fly. Unless you like the tedious job of soldering each switch one by one, but believe me, there are plenty of people who do enjoy the process, but I never did one before, so I can't speak for that. And it seems that was the most popular option for the early days. The ease of switching key switches, however, caused everyone to turn toward the hot swappable PCB board after it was introduced. Who wouldn't like the idea of switching keys just like that? But most recently, the solder PCB board is making a comeback because of the new plateless build. More to that later on. Maybe it is perfect time to introduce the new component of a keyboard, the plate. It is used to secure the key switches to the PCB. Throughout the evolution of the plate, it could be made of aluminum, brass, FR4, palm, PC, etc. While this material varies from hard to soft, it also differentiates the sound and feels when you interact with the keyboard. For example, palm and polycarbonate plates were one of the most popular options for recent keyboards because plastic are more flexible and produce a deeper sound that enthusiasts call thunk, while metal plates were often used for a clackier sound profile, which is the high-pitched sound. And remember how I mentioned the plateless build? In order to achieve the softest and bounciest feel, the current trend also went plateless, where no plates were used at all. But in order to not let the key switches fall off, most builders would recommend soldering the switches, and sometimes the thickness of the PCB was made thicker to accommodate that. So far, I have covered the PCB options such as solder board or hot swap, and then we touch base with the plate options. Now let's move on to the type of mount for the keyboard case. The evolution of case mount options has been similar to that of plate evolution. When I first bought my first mechanical keyboard, most of the keyboard were either top or bottom mounted. As the hobby expanded, more options for mounts were introduced. With a simple Google search for types of mounting style, Keyboard University has the most simple diagrams to describe the different types of mounts. I will also leave the link in the description below if you are interested in taking a look as well. Starting with that tray mount. if you look at the diagram, the entirety of the keyboard case was mounted using the center mounting post, securing the PCB with the screw-in pins. Next, we have the most popular option in the past, which is the top mount. Notice that the plate was secured to the top housing of the keyboard. Bottom mount, the screw was reversed and attached to the bottom housing of the keyboard. The sandwich mount, which has big long screws that go through the bottom housing, the plate and top housing of the keyboard, holding the plate like the middle of the sandwich. An integrated plate means that the plate and top housing of the keyboard are produced as one piece. This gives the keyboard a very rigid and solid feel. I never seen such a build without a plate. I would imagine that would be so stiff, and don't think it would be popular since the trend is toward liking more of a flexible build rather than being tough and stiff. A gasket mount uses gasket material between the plate and keyboard housing on both the top and bottom sides. This gives the board a slightly more cushion feel since the plate isn't in direct contact with the other metal component of the keyboard. This is most likely the inverse of the integrated plate, which is attempting to achieve a softer, more bouncy feel. After exploring all the components of the keyboard, we assemble it, but somehow they usually sound hollow and empty, at least in the early days of custom mechanical keyboards. In order to achieve a darker or deeper sound, people tend to add foam to the case and make other modifications so that they sound deeper. However, that sounding deeper is highly subjective. You may like that sound profile, but others may not. Most people who get into this hobby over the years and in the last few years have been looking for a deeper sound profile, but at the same time I see people who like a higher sound profile. Let me introduce you to some of the most common modifications of the past few years. PE foam, also known as perforated foam, has been found in a variety of packaging materials in recent years. I'm sure if you look around in your electronics packages, you could find some. If not, you could find some on Amazon and look for packaging foam. Then you could cut it out according to your keyboard size and stuff it into the bottom of the case. As more keyboard enthusiasts become more creative, they begin to experiment with various types of foams or material to generate different sound profiles. If you do a quick search on Amazon for keyboard foam modifications, you can find foam like Poron and other type of dampeners that serve pretty much the same purpose. Another popular and inexpensive modification like the polyfill or tape mod could be used to accomplish the dark sound profile for most keyboards. Polyfill could be easily found on Amazon, and you could go to any hardware store to find those painter's tape for this modification. This modification is easily found on YouTube, and it is extremely simple to implement. Some people use one layer of tape or sometimes multiple layers. That is based on your preference. The polyfill was also very popular, and you could also add according to your taste. This is pretty much all I have to say about the general or fundamental component of a custom mechanical keyboard. Let me know if you find it interesting, and I hope that I have answered some of the questions you may have to understand more about this hobby. So what do you think about custom mechanical keyboards? Are you ready to take a deeper dive into why people are so interested in it? In the following video, I'll go over the keyboard switches in greater detail, including the variety, sound profiles, and types. If you like the content, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss the next video that I will be uploading next. Here I'm signing out, Antonio from Kustom Keebs.